Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be working on this Cannondale SM700. I've wanted to do a drop bar 26-inch Cannondale for a while, but most of the ones that are my size have a really long top tube, normally about over 60 centimeters. So this one has a really cool splatter paint job. It does have the cantilever Cannondale dropouts, which is pretty typical. The bottom bracket's not stuck in there, I just left it in there. And it came with this Odyssey seat post too. So this seat post is also a pump. It's called an Odyssey aerator. So that's the pump handle there. It still works, but it's missing sort of the nozzle. It's like snapped off, so at some point I have to replace that for it to actually attach to a valve. So the bike didn't come with a fork, but I've got one of these Edson forks. So this is actually a 1-inch one, because this bike is a 1-inch, but I just grabbed two of these 1-inch forks, because you can adapt them to 1 1/8 if you need to. So it looks really cool on the bike. I tried a curved fork as well, but it doesn't really look as good, so we'll be using that. So this bike has a 58.5 centimeter top tube, and yeah, it's a 22-inch frame, so 56.5 centimeters in the seat tube. So it should be plenty tall enough for me, but I might have to use like a riser stem or something like that, because it seems to have a pretty short head tube and a short stack height, so we might have to either leave a bit of steer tube coming out of the top of the frame, or yeah, play around with stems and stuff. So I don't really know why there was some water in the bottom bracket, but that sort of stuff happens. Luckily it's an alloy frame, so wouldn't really do any damage, and it looks like there was some grease in the bottom bracket anyway, so yeah. Luckily there's no oxidization, like the water hasn't eaten into the alloy at all, so that's pretty good. Just kind of a strange thing. All the threads and everything look intact in the frame, and I didn't find any cracks in the frame, so that's always a good thing. Anything that was cracked was this chainstay cover. It's just one of those things though. Paint looks really tidy underneath this. So we're just going to go through the frame and clean up a couple of the mucky spots, just using some soapy water around the brake bosses and things like that. But the frame is pretty tidy. I don't know if we'll replace that decal or take it off, because this one isn't below the clear coat like this one. So you can see it's faded and all like worn, and it's missing a couple of letters. So whether we just take it off, I don't think it should have been there from the factory. But I don't know how or why there would be an extra decal in the same color and everything. It's a strange thing for someone to put on, I don't know. So the clear coat has lost a little bit of its gloss, but it's still in really good condition. There's a couple little patches on the frame that are missing some of the black paint and stuff, but yeah, it should polish up quite nicely. We're not going to polish the part by the top tube decal, just because we want to replace that, and then some polish is just going to get in the way of the sticker or the new decal from sticking. So I've checked out some catalogs and that sort of thing to see which decal would have been original, and I've kind of seen it both ways. So obviously the one on the down tube is factory because it's underneath the clear coat, but I've also seen them with just the top tube decal. So yeah, don't know, maybe it was a different regional thing, or maybe like an end of year production or something like that where they changed. Either way, I think we're just going to replace the CAN in the top tube decal and go from there. I can always change it if I want to. So I've had this Edson fork for a little while, and it's developed some rust underneath the clear coat. So I managed to peel it off and make sure that it's not too bad. So we'll go through and strip all the clear coat off, clean up all the rust and everything. And that'll just give me like a peace of mind that the forks are not going to deteriorate and that sort of stuff in the future. So I was kind of on the fence about whether I should paint it or just leave it clear coated raw steel. But after talking with a couple of mates and stuff, I came to the conclusion that I kind of wanted it to be more complete. So we'll end up painting it and then splattering it to sort of match the frame. Found out that the latex gloves did actually protect from the paint stripper, which is handy, because paint stripper on your hands burns. But I forgot to order workshop gloves, so just using some latex ones. So after letting the paint stripper sort of eat the clear coat for a bit, could scrape it all off. And then there was some little bits and stuff around the brake bosses, so just use the wire brush to get those off. After that, some paint prep. Just use some isopropyl alcohol to wipe off any residue and stuff. So you can see I've already got the crown race on the fork, and I've actually gone through and already pushed in the headset into the frame. I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to work out with the headset, because there's no dimensions and everything like on the headset listing, so it worked out. So unfortunately I just had satin black paint but mixed with some clear coat. We'll put the satin black on and then we'll use some green to splatter on, and then after that we'll clear coat it a bunch, and it should come up pretty glossy. The paint's quite old on the frame anyway, so I'm sure we can match that pretty good. So just doing a few relatively light coats. I think I just did 2 coats of black, or yeah, so it's sort of two, 3, 2 good coats. So the first one was kind of more of like a light one, and I missed some spots and stuff, and then did 2 over the top of that. So the only thing is that the embossed Edson logo on the top of the fork blades was sort of covered by the black paint. So we've let that dry for a while now, and we've got this green paint that we're going to splatter on. Just using a brush, sort of throwing the paint at it, trying not to flick it over it. So yeah, I'm trying to go in like a throwing motion rather than like a throwing the paint at it. Don't know how to describe that, but you're gonna have to play around to do that. Another method is using a fork. My mate Duncan did a really good job with a palette knife. Yeah, looks pretty good. Quite happy with it. We're gonna have to go around the fork entirely and try and sort of match it up to the frame. It didn't even click until my girlfriend mentioned it that I'm painting a fork with a fork. It's just the silliest thing, but it worked really well. This was Duncan's tip as well, so thanks Duncan for that. Going over the fork now with some clear coat. Did about 3 clear coats to give a really nice even gloss finish. If you live in New Zealand or Australia, I really like this Dulux clear coat. Works on most of the decals and stuff that I've used in the past as well. So we've got a couple of sets of decals that we can tidy the frame up with. So the bigger one is from Duncan. Thanks Duncan, he gave me a couple of spares from when he repainted his. And I've got this one which should fit the top tube. So I think we're just going to use part of the new one and just remove some of these letters here. So I'll just go through and sort of carefully scrape these off. Just being kind of careful with this, so you just want to run this flat across the top tube. Trying not to sort of dig the knife in. Cannondale. I don't know. Oh, man. I feel like every time I see this now, it's going to say Cannondale. And I kind of like that. the whole like can, because they're like tin cans really. Cannondale. Thank you. It's funny. Cannondale. So that's the decal all sort of repaired. I don't know what you would say. Not replaced, but touched up. So it looks better. It's not perfect. The decal is kind of translucent. You can sort of see some of the splatter through it and stuff. And I think it's like a millimeter off, like it's just a little bit too high. But in some angles it looks perfect. I don't know. But I'm happy with it. It looks a damn sight better. But now it kind of spells Cannondale. because some of that O is missing, but whatever. Time to cut down the stereo tube of the fork and install the star nut. So after the hacksawing it, we just got to clean off all the burrs from the outside of that. Sometimes I will use my pipe cutter, but you still have to clean off burrs from the pipe cutter anyway, so yeah. I feel like it's cheaper to replace a hacksaw blade than it is the pipe cutter disc. So yeah, installing the star nut now. So this is for a 1-inch one, so it looks really small. So my star nut setter tool obviously is for a 1/1/8 stereo tube. So I just use the shim that I'm going to use for the stem, use that inside it, and then put the star nut in, and then we'll bash that all together. So I'm just holding the fork so it doesn't like shift in the vise, because I don't have the vise up tight. And we'll just set that in place. Pretty good amount of penetration. So the headset we've got for this is a ACS main drive, so it's a sealed bearing unit. So that's a nice little upgrade for the bike as well. We're going to be running a cantilever brake front and rear. I know I could rock a disc brake on the front. I've actually got a little disc brake mount to run on a cantilever Cannondale frame, so I could upgrade to disc brakes front and rear on this. But for the time being, I'm just going to run cantilever brakes. I don't know how committed I am to this frame, so to run that mount, you need to drill another hole in the frame. So yeah, I don't want to drill a hole in there prematurely. The handlebar we're running for this is just a specialized drop bar. So this actually came on the specialized Tricross that I have that I built up as fixed gear not too long ago. It's 42 centimeters wide, nice shallow drop. It's going to be a good sort of baseline to see if I like drop bars on this bike. So yeah, I might change to a Ritchie Beacon if I do end up really liking it at some point, because I do really like the Ritchie Beacon handlebar. I just didn't want to fork out for a new handlebar if I wasn't going to like this. So most of these parts are actually from my parts bin. I think I bought like cables and brake pads for this build, and like even the paint came from Duncan, because he grabbed that. He grabbed the green actually and let me use some of that. So thanks to Duncan for that as well. So I think I just had to buy the headset, but I'd already bought that for like using the Edson fork on a frame anyway, because I bought 2 of those forks. One of them is actually going to go in the green rock hopper. It's a late 90s alloy one. So that's a 1/1/8 frame. So I bought like a headset adapter and everything for that. So yeah, these are the brake pads we're going to use on the front of the bike, and we're going to run a Cool Stop Eagle Claw, I think, on the rear. So I tend to run a stronger brake pad on the rear. It sort of evens the feel out for me. One of the things about these Edson forks is the blades are wider apart. So most forks, the cantilever posts are about 80 millimeters. These ones are about 100 millimeters. So that's something to keep in mind. Just going to clean up the wheels now. We've got these LX wheels. Sort of did like a trade for a mate, or to a mate for these. It worked out really well. Quite a nice wheel set. So we're going to be running a 2x9 gearing on this. That's just some isopropyl alcohol to get off all the WD-40 and stuff, because you don't want WD-40 just sitting on your hub, because it'll just attract dust and stuff. So just pulling apart the hub, and then we'll clean it all out and replace the grease and put the bearings back in. So I was going to run a 1x9 setup. I thought I ordered 2 green chain rings, one for one project and then another one for this one. So I thought I ordered a 32 tooth and a 36 tooth, and I was going to use the 36 tooth on this, but it turns out I just ordered the 32 tooth, which is a bit too low for a gravel bike, but a pretty good ratio for me for a 26-inch wheel, just as like a slow sort of cruiser or off-road kind of bike. So unfortunately, yeah, that sort of changed that plan. It was a nice green chainring, but anyway. We're running 2x9, which is a better gearing ratio anyway. So just inspecting the ball bearings before we throw those back in the hub. Now that we've got it all cleaned out and everything, throw some fresh grease in so that when we put the ball bearings in, they stay in place. I normally sort of block off the other side of the hub just in case they end up falling through. They don't go throughout the workshop or anything. It's a bit easier to do this over a rag or something as well, just in case you drop it and it bounces outside of the hub. But just putting it all back together now, and then we'll add like a little bit of preload. You don't want too much free play in the hub, so just sort of rock it around. But then check it back and forth as well, and then take it out and spin it. Shouldn't feel any binding or anything. You should feel a tiny little bit of movement there. Once you do the quick release or axle nuts down, it takes out like a little bit extra. You don't want it binding up, so yeah. The cassette we're using on the bike is an 11 to 34 tooth, so this XT derailleur should clear that pretty easily.
Dangler.
Quite like the design of these XT derailleurs. Don't really know why they don't have a barrel adjuster though. Cranks we're using are these Shimano 104 BCD Holotech 2 cranks. And we've got this is an outer race face one. That's a 36 tooth, and then the inner one is a 22 tooth. So because we're running at 2x, we're going to put this in the middle chainring position. That way it can shift from the 22 tooth easily. Otherwise there's just too much gap. If we put the inner on the inner position and then that second ring on the outer, the chain will just get sucked in between the two. Throwing a bit of grease in the bottom bracket shell now before putting the bottom bracket in. Holotech 2 use spacers and stuff to align everything and make up the axle width for the cranks. I think it's 2 on one side and then 1 on the other. Making sure to use a bit of grease on the spindle as well. So setting the preload, I just have these bolts that I normally just put in, set the preload, tighten the crank arm down, and then take the bolt out. I just have like a couple of these bolts. Yeah, you don't really need to keep it in. It's kind of just to set the preload. Then the front derailleur, we've just got the Sora one, just because it was the same, like it was a bottom pull and it was 31.8, which is what we needed for the bike. I think these are DMR V8 or V12 pedals. So there's a few little nuances and stuff to know about drop bar setups when you're setting them up. So you want to get the right shifter ratio and also the right brake pull ratio. So running road shifters on mountain bike stuff up to 9-speed works okay. The front derailleurs, you will need a road front derailleur if you're going to run like a triple setup. But most setups you can run a mountain front derailleur for 2x and it works fine. But 10-speed and up, the road shifters don't work with mountain bike derailleurs, so you'll need like a Wolf-Tooth Tanpan or other kind of shift ratio like adjuster. And I just tend to run them with cantilever brakes because it's the same pull ratio, so don't have any weird brake situation. And yeah, they work great with cantilevers. You can sort of set them up with V-brakes, either using the travel agent brake, inline adjuster thing that sort of bumps up the pull ratio, or you can run it without, but then the brake pads have to sit really close to the rim. So yeah, I just run cantilever brakes. They work great for me. I'm like 100 kilograms and I can run a loaded bike with canties with cool stop brake pads with no issues, so yeah. The handlebar tape we're going to be using on the bike is just some used Ritchie bar tape. So I pulled this off a bike and it didn't fall apart or anything like that, so yeah, it's still in usable condition. Quite like the pattern of it, but it has just a nice foam feel, so thought we'd reuse it on this. That sort of helps in the ability to change the handlebar in the future as well. So I think I'll have to change. I left like a little bit of brake cable there, but I think I will have to change one of the cables or maybe both of them. Because the front cable, obviously, with a wider handlebar, I might have to to change the front brake cable, but at least I won't have to change the rear, or as well as changing some like expensive new handlebar tape. So yeah, try and recycle it if you can. You normally get like quite a bit of life out of it, but it pays to take off handlebar tape once in a while anyway, to make sure there's not too much like oxidization of the handlebar underneath the bar tape. Because yeah, sweat's really corrosive to alloy. So just doing a simple wrap of the handlebars. Actually had a decent amount of tape left. I think whatever bar I took them off, they weren't that wide, but they were wrapped. Like they had a lot of overlap. So yeah, we got the Ritchie handlebar plugs as well, and that's the bike pretty much all done. We just got to set up the gear shifters, and also we got to throw on a bottle cage as well. Then just some last minute little adjustments and things. So throwing in the gear cables, because we're running 9-speed, we don't have any weird issues. So these are just road 9-speed shifters running that mountain bike Shimano rear derailleur. So these are just instantly compatible. Like there's no weird things that we have to do with this. So if you go to 10-speed, you can sort of change the pull ratio a little bit by using it's a little bit of a trick. So you basically just attach the cable on the opposite side of the clamp bolt. So here, like for instance, it would bolt to the other side. But because they're all 9-speed stuff, we don't have to do that. So just running it on the proper side. So basically by putting the cable in the wrong side of the bolt, it sort of increases the throw based on how much cable was pulled. It's just a quick little trick if you are setting up 10-speed stuff. It's not like an exact science or anything like that, but I found that it works. So yeah, something to try before you buy a Wolftooth Tanpan if you're running 10-speed. Just sizing the chain now for the cassette and everything. Then we'll throw this through the derailleur and then put that quick link in. Quick link in. And that's the bike pretty much all done. So for the bike, we're going to be running a different seat post for the time being. And then I think I'll do like another video trying to fix that Odyssey aerator seat post. But for the time being, I'm on a bit of a time crunch, so I thought I would just put a regular tidy black seat post in. So just adjusting the derailleur now. Sort of trying to dial in like the cable tension and everything. So just setting the limit screws here, making sure that we've got enough cable tension to allow for that. Why did they stop having barrel adjusters in them? What? And then once we shifted into the low gear, the upper jockey wheel was rubbing on that big cog. So just adding some B limit screw here to move that derailleur away from the cog. That's better. Then after shifting it back and forth a couple of times, shifted all fine. So good to go. So now moving to the front derailleur now. Normally the compatible stuff on the rear is pretty simple. For some reason setting up 2x can be a bit of a pain. Just because like the derailleur is set at a different height and that sort of thing. So yeah, this is actually a road front derailleur. But yeah, it's meant to shift like a 39 to 50 tooth instead of a 22 to 36 tooth. So I guess technically it should be up a little bit higher, but then it looks kind of goofy and stuff. So we've got it shifting those two cogs now. Feels like it's jamming it over pretty hard. You can see a little bit of rear wheel wobble too. We'll have to sort. But we'll see what it feels like once we've actually got the bike riding and stuff, and see how bad it feels then. It might feel a bit better with, some pedal pressure. Setting up the front brakes, we just get the brake pads sort of dialed in. You want these to be 90 degrees to the caliper, basically. Just sort of rough them in, and then we'll throw the straddle cable hanger and the straddle cable in. We'll get that set at the right height, and then we can adjust the brake pads from there. So you want the straddle cable to be about 90 degrees when the pads hit the rim. So there's just a little bit of fiddling back and forth between the straddle cable hanger height and the straddle cable length. So basically just set it at one length and then check the angle of it. So you just want to pull the cable hanger up. So the straddle cable hanger was a little bit too steep there, so we need to drop the hanger down a little bit and pull the straddle cable through the caliper a bit more. And that's about roughly where we want it to be at. From here we just need to adjust the spring tension either side to get it centered and pulling evenly. And that's the bike all done. The seat we've got on is just a WTB Kona one, just for the time being. And the cables that you can see are a slightly different colour, but it doesn't really bug me too much. Really happy with how the bike turned out. The tyres should be really fast on gravel. I really like Panaracer Gravel Kings. Oh, and we've also got this green bottle cage, which is pretty cool. So I don't think the handlebar will be perfect, but we'll test that out and see how it goes. So I'll see you at the end of the video. Thanks. I have a good low ratio. Low gearing is so good. Hello. From 50 meters. The steering is like a little bit more sensitive because of the fork, but it's not like it doesn't self-steer by the feel of it, like I can no hands it and stuff. So we changed it like a little bit, but not not to the point where I would want a different fork on it. The low gearing is so handy. I'm so glad that I went 2x instead of using that 32 tooth chainring. I feel like 36-tooth is enough. I'm not in the top gear, I'm just sort of like plotting along. Especially I think because of the headwind. I need to adjust the front derailleur so it's rubbing a little bit. You've got a tailwind. Oh well. Okay, yeah, we don't need that gear. We'll take it down into the small ring and see how it does like in just steer stuff. So plenty of low range. Plenty of low range. I think that rain's like 10 minutes away, so. So that's pretty much all for today's video. I ended up rambling after this for a bit about like some of the upcoming builds, but I'm really happy with how the Cannondale turned out. I think I would change to a different handlebar, something with like a shallower drop. but not too much wider than this. Honestly, this feels pretty well about right of sort of where I want this bike. The gearing, I could probably go up like a little bit higher, but I just don't know how it would shift, like a 22 tooth to a, say, a 38 or 40 tooth. I don't really need the extra gearing, but I know on the road and stuff, like when you're going down a slight hill and that, then I'll end up spitting out the 36 tooth, but it's not really a concern for me at the moment. Certainly not on gravel and stuff. Not going too fast, so don't really need it. Brakes work great. The gearing and everything, the shift's great. So under load, that 2x setup works fine, but in the stand it feels like it was jamming the gears a little bit, but yeah, it feels great. The stem height, I got pretty well spot on. I wouldn't want them any higher. Yeah, I tend to like a decent amount of saddle to bar drop. My mate reckons it's my short back length. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I like a decent amount of saddle to bar drop. So I think it'd be good to keep this bike in my arsenal as kind of like an overnighter bike, because it has the fork that has the cargo mounts on it, and like I can throw a rear rack on and stuff. I can definitely do some overnight trips on it. I don't know if it would be my choice for like long multi-day ones, but yeah, it's a good option for like a nice trip to Waiheke or something. I can do some nice gravel riding and stuff. But yeah, thanks for checking the video out. After this, I'm just going to be rambling about some of the upcoming builds. But yeah, let me know your thoughts.
I have I think it's an 86 or 85, somewhere around there, an ST600, which is well actually I don't know, it was the factory 27.25 wheel size, but I can definitely fit 700C with some cantilever brakes. So it's an early touring frame by Cannondale, and it has a steel fork, and I think it fits a 35mm tire. So I have that I think is about a 58cm frame, so it's quite big, which I'm definitely going to do off the drop bar. I need to get another one of those Nitto handlebars, the RN3, or even like the wide noodle would be really cool on that. But I've got a few more 700C bikes that I'm kind of having to juggle in my head, so I don't know if I'll get around to building that up anytime soon, but at the same time I kind of really want to do another like hybrid sort of gravel thing. It'd be cool. I got the Cannondale ST600, I think it is, and a Trek multi-track alloy one, but the Trek I think is about a 56, so it's a little smaller. And what else? Oh, I just picked up a Nishiki. Oh, Nishiki. I forgot what it's called. I'll put it on the screen or something. But that is like a caliper brake or a centerful brake frame, 700C. That needs a respray and decals and everything, but I'm really looking forward to that because I quite like Nishiki. So maybe I'll put the Nishiki on the screen. I'm thinking, I think I found gold decals for it.
So the Nishiki is a international, I think, going by like some catalog photos and stuff and lining up the logs and that sort of thing. It's going to be a really cool bike, but I do have to wait for the decals, which kind of sucks because I'm really excited to build that up. But I've got plenty of other bikes to come up the next few weeks and stuff as well. But yeah, thanks for checking the video out. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.